views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
A very scary experience.
You know, God is a solution. God, the 12 step.
I like where he's going here.
Helps the community grow, helps us grow. Monty has done a phenomenal job. Lack of open-mindedness. And you're talking about taking people through a spiritual process and getting them into recovery.
Thanks, Monty, and thanks for all your support.
We need spirituality to make this thing work long term.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
And now, broadcasting on location somewhere in the vast expanse of the Pacific Northwest, it's the over-opinionated 12-stepologist, the Monty Man.
That's right. Well, welcome to an extremely special broadcast of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. And the cat is going to drive me crazy. Go away.
You're aching on Nala now.
Christy, the studio cat, is making your presence known. Marv is here today.
Good morning.
This is a very special show. Tony's here today.
Morning.
Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. I'm sitting by him.
Denver is here today.
Yes, I am.
Tony, who are you sitting next to?
Roger McDiarmid.
Roger McDiarmid's here today. Hey,
I'm
Roger.
sweating.
Good morning.
Roger is our Southern California rep for Take 12 Recovery Radio and one of our platinum sponsors. Yay, Roger! Everybody clap for Roger. Yay!
I'm nervous.
So Roger drove up here from Huntington Beach.
Indeed.
Yeah, tell us about Huntington Beach.
Great place to live.
Is it?
Is it sunny
Indeed.
there?
Yeah, I'm 2.2 miles from the Pacific Ocean.
Oh. 2.2 miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Roger's been on the show before, and Roger is one of the biggest reasons we're able to attend Hope Fest every year in Prescott, in beautiful Prescott, not Prescott, Prescott, like biscuit, Arizona. And on this show, so he came up, so we wanted to do a special show today featuring Roger, and the topic for this show is Asleep in the Light, Emotional Sobriety in the Church. So I want to preface, before we get into the fun stuff here, I want to preface what we mean by the church. So the word church in the Greek is ekklesia, and it simply means a group of people that come together for a specific purpose. It was used to describe a town hall meeting, for instance. So a lot of people think, well, church means a religious gathering. Not necessarily. The word actually comes from just meeting together, and you have a singleness of purpose for that meeting. So when some people say AA is my church, right, they may not even realize how accurate they're being, because it's a group of people coming together for a primary purpose, right, to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. But it's not that particular church we're going to talk about. We're talking about the faith-based community, emotional sobriety within the faith-based community. So we're going to be talking about that. But before we do any of that, let's see what we got here.
All right, everybody, it's time for Take 12 Trivia, brought to you by that award-winning recovery magazine, the 12-Step Gazette. Visit their website at 12stepgazette.com. Now take it away, the Monty Man.
Will one day he reveal himself?
Cecil? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Aww. Cecil has never discussed with me whether it wants to let you all know who it is.
I already know who
We're not sure if it's...
I have a feeling I know who it is.
We don't know if it's a guy, a gal, a rabbit, a cat. No? You may be wrong. You may be wrong about that.
You may be right.
Mm-hmm.
You may be wrong.
You may be right.
It just may
Isn't
be
that a song?
It just may be a lunatic you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. So, of course, if you get these, if you get a question, a trivia question right, you get a bell. If you get it wrong, the yell fluff machine. Or you may get a, we don't know what you're going to get, but you're going to get something. And like we always say, if
Variety is good.
You're going to get something.
you're going to get something. And as we always say, if you get them all right, you get them all right. Big deal. So what? Who cares? Because it's pretty much useless stuff anyway.
So I don't have to feel like I'm under pressure.
No, you do. You have to get them all right. Otherwise, we're going to shave your mustache.
That'd be weird.
There's Jeopardy.
Ooh, dun dun dun.
All right, trivia question number 1. The zip.
What is that?
Oh, Lord.
Like a zipper?
Lord have mercy. The zip in zip code.
Oh.
The zip in zip code stands for, and these are your choices: Zone Insurance Proclamation, Zone Improvement Plan, or simply faster mail service, as in zip. Like you got it done, zippity-doo-dah. Is it Zone Insurance Proclamation, Zone Improvement Plan, or faster mail service? What do you think, Tony?
I don't know any of those words.
Pick one.
A.
A, Zone Insurance Proclamation. What do you think, Denver?
Proclamation is a beautiful word. I'm going with A.
You're going to go with A? What do you think there, Roger?
I'm going Zone Improvement Plan.
Zone Improvement Plan. What do you think, Marv?
A.
A. Well, you guys, other than Roger, would be wrong.
Because he's smart.
That's a shocker.
Right.
Zone Improvement Plan. Exactly. That's
Who
what I
thinks
think.
this stuff?
Who thinks this stuff up?
Yeah.
Somebody that wants to be a radio talk show host, but has never gotten that far.
They didn't take a chance.
Thought zip code.
By this way, it has nothing to do with recovery, any of this. Okay, at the end of Elvis Presley's concerts, the MC would announce to the audience, Elvis has left the building. Why did they do that? What was the reason? Here's your choices. A, well, he actually left the property.
That's what I would
Wow.
He left the property within 3 minutes of closing the show. That's your first choice. B, he never performed an encore song.
Oh.
Or C, it was just something they said that sounded cool and really meant nothing. What do you think, Marv?
I'm going to go ahead and go with the last one.
It just really didn't mean anything.
Meant nothing. I love it.
What do you think, Roger?
I'm going to go with that as well.
Okay. Tony?
Why not? Let's go with
that
one.
Right. Denver?
Who cares?
Yeah, right. Who cares, right? He just left the building. Well, sorry, guys.
What? It actually meant something?
Elvis Presley, in his entire career, never performed an encore song, and that's how they let you know. He ain't coming back. You can clap all you want to, but he gone.
At least he left a legend.
Remember, and
He left a legend, all right.
And our co-host Bruce, who's now walking in heaven with the Lord, right?
On Eclipse Day.
He actually transported Elvis
That's
from
right.
a concert.
I forgot about that.
To the hotel that can't remember the black artist singer, darling.
It's
You
on tip
Send
of
Me.
my tongue. I remember the story.
Darling, you send me.
Yeah.
Really you do. Who is that guy? I can't remember his name now.
Marvin Gaye?
No.
Come on, Tony.
Smokey Robinson?
Come on. You remember the story. Who was it?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
But I didn't
anyway,
believe it when Bruce told me.
He had been murdered in that motel room. What was it, like a week prior or something like that? No, it wasn't Little Richard. and Bruce transported Elvis to that same motel room. Elvis was hiding in the back seat or something like that because they would use vehicles that no one would suspect. And, the limos would leave. Everybody thought Elvis was that, but he wasn't in there. He's just in the back of this old beat-up car, All right, here's number 3. Who's the first civilian to own his own Hummer?
What's a Hummer?
A Hummer, one of those big, it's like a Jeep on steroids.
Oh.
This is why I sit where I do, where I can just see everybody's face.
I felt it.
I love it. What's a Hummer?
He's never coming back.
It's a Hummer. And here's your choices.
Is that a car?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We're going to go with yes.
Actually, they're designed after a military vehicle, aren't they,
were a
Roger?
military
Yeah,
vehicle.
they were a military vehicle.
okay.
It's one of those big ones you see in the parades. Was it Steve Jobs, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Bruce Willis? What do you think, Roger? Roger knows.
Yeah.
Arnold
Roger knows
Schwarzenegger.
Okay, Tony?
I go with him.
Are you? Mm-hmm. Are you really?
Yep.
Okay. What do you think, Marv?
Well, there was Bruce Willis and
Steve Jobs,
Steve Jobs.
the Apple computer guy.
Oh, I was about to ask who he was.
Yeah, I'll go with Steve Jobs.
Okay, what do you think, Denver?
All right. So Roger's a movie buff. I know this, but I'm going to go with Bruce Willis because I like him.
Ew.
Well, if you said anybody other than Arnold, you would be wrong. Roger's right. It is.
That's why I went with it.
Roger's right.
He knows everything.
It's logic.
It was Arnold. All right, we're almost coming around the corner here. You ready?
All right.
When wombats poop,
Yeah, we're at the corner, all right.
when wombats poop, their poop resembles what? And these are your choices: rabbit droppings, square cubes, or spaghetti.
That's kind of a crappy question.
I don't even know what a wombat is.
What was C?
Spaghetti noodles.
There's no D. I can tell you that much from Monday show.
You know what a wombat is, Tony?
No.
It's a horrible little creature. Obviously has troubles with its movement.
Poops cubes.
Okay, do they poop rabbit droppings like rabbit or square cubes or spaghetti noodles? What do you think, Roger?
I haven't a clue.
I know, huh?
I can't imagine square cubes. That pains me.
Have you seen a wombat? They're angry.
Probably because that is so outlandish. I'm going to go with square cubes.
Square cubes?
Yeah.
Tony, what do you take a stab at
I'm
it?
going with that mad emoji over there because
The mad emoji?
I don't even know what a wombat is.
What's a wombat, Roger?
It's a weird animal from Australia. And beyond that, I don't know.
Is it like a kangaroo?
A weasel? Angry weasel or
A
something?
weasel?
Well, I don't know.
Did they fly?
They fly. Oh my God.
Help, listeners, help.
Do you know what one is?
I have no idea.
I really don't know either.
But I'm going to go with
Strange mammal
spaghetti.
from Australia.
You're going to go with spaghetti noodles?
Yeah.
Yeah?
That was my second choice.
SpaghettiOs. It's SpaghettiOs.
All right. Well, Roger's actually correct. They poop square cubes.
Of course
Really?
he is.
I'm
He's my
Googling
new
that
best
later
friend now.
because I don't
love
buy
him.
that.
How does one do that?
I don't buy square cubes.
How does one do that?
No.
I'm now intrigued about wombats. I will now have to
I'm
research
hot.
that.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, I know.
And I straighten my hair.
Okay, so here's the last one. Hallelujah.
Jesus.
The voice of Star Wars character Yoda and Sesame Street's Miss Piggy and Cookie Monster were spoken by the same person.
What?
Is that true or false, Tony?
I don't I say false, but I can do good. The first one.
Yoda? Do it.
No. Oh, no, that's not Yoda. That's
That's the
That was really nice, though. Thank you.
Yeah, we like that.
That was good.
Yoda's this tall, and the one you did is this tall.
Yeah.
he's the Wookiee.
I
You're
like
doing
it.
Chewie.
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 That's
Yeah.
it.
Chewbacca.
That's who I was thinking.
Chewbacca. Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Poor
So-
Roger's never coming back.
So did the same person do all three characters? Tony?
don't
You
think so.
You don't think so? What do you think? Roger, you think so? You think
Cookie Monster.
Miss Piggy,
Piggy.
Yoda, and Cookie Monster, was it
And
the
Yoda.
same voice?
I'm going to say yes.
You gonna say yes? What do you think?
I'm going to say yes.
Yes. What do you think there, Denver?
I love Miss Piggy's voice. I'm going with yes.
you
You've
love
gone
Miss
with
Piggy
yes.
or her voice?
Well, Tony, sorry,
Oh.
We knew that.
you guys are correct. Mr. Frank Oz did the voice of all three characters.
Frank, huh?
Yes. Good
Wow.
old- good old
Frank's is a nice name.
I guess.
There's nothing funnier than being stoned off your blessed assurance and watching Sesame Street.
Oh my God.
Really?
Now, it's not healthy. It's not good. Don't do it. I'm just telling you, those were the days. Watching a puppet try to eat a cookie and have it all fall out of its mouth is the funniest thing in the world when you've had too many bong hits.
Oh my God, James is just going to lose it.
All right, well, that's over with.
I missed that part of it.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Okay, so I got an email a couple weeks ago from a gentleman who listens to the YouTube version of the show, who said he'd like us to get to the topic sooner. That we're not a glum lot, but give it a rest.
We've had that before, though. We've had that before.
Yeah, and so I put a what do you call a poll out there to see. Would you like to see more fun and games, less fun and games, or keep the show the way it is? Only one person answered. It was Denver.
Gee, many Christmas listeners. Are you listening? Here was your chance.
Almost
didn't answer.
almost 4,000 are listening. 4,000. Almost 4,000 listeners on social media, and only one, and he happens to be on the show, answered the poll. So we're going to keep it the way it is.
Right on. And that was my vote, too. Sorry, you're going to get some more useless trivia.
Well, here's the deal. On this is a special show that's on Wednesday, but we have other shows that are more serious. I mean, Monday's show, we do half the show is we're cracking it up. We're just having fun, and the other half the show's the topic. But we brought back the Caroline Preston show on relationships, applying the traditions in your personal family life. We have Walking Through the Big Book with Chris Schroeder, Walking Through the 12 by 12 with Chris Schroeder and myself, and then we've got stuff from Dr. Alan Berger. We've got the Victory Report interviewing men and women.
Which
from
are awesome shows, by the way. I've been listening to them.
You enjoy them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are good.
The Victory Report Teen Challenge interviews, we've got those. And those are all very focused on the topic only kind of thing.
Sometimes you got to have fun, though.
Yeah, so this is the one show where we mix it up.
Yeah.
So the topic for this is...
and we're going to continue. Thank you,
Yes.
listeners.
That's right. We're going to keep it the same. So sorry. But the topic for this show is asleep in the light, emotional sobriety in the church. So the definition of emotional sobriety. Well, let me tell you what emotional dependency is. Emotional dependency is when a person or persons are dependent on other people's behavior to be okay in their own skin.
Listen to that closely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that one.
We're dependent on other people's behavior, the way they treat us, the way they treat others. In the world today, a lot of people's behaviors can be very bizarre. And so if you let that stuff make you uncomfortable in your own skin, you're emotionally dependent on somebody else's behavior. And so what usually happens is even if they behave the expectation you put on them, it still isn't enough. And if you're emotionally dependent, that's kind of how you act out in life. Emotional sobriety is regardless of what's going on around you, regardless of other people's behavior, you're comfortable in your own skin. And that's emotional sobriety. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with alcoholism or drug addiction. It can, but we all know that, just getting sober or clean or sober clean or clober, if you want to call it, or whatever your choice is, that a lot of people do that and never become emotionally sober. They're a wreck. And somebody asked me one time, they thought, do you think that people in the body of Christ, in the faith communities and so forth, have this emotional sobriety thing down? And I said, no. I don't think the majority do. Because, first of all, I don't think the majority of them even knows what that is. And by the way, Bill Wilson did not make up the phrase emotional sobriety. You know, when your soberness is, you know, and you can be drunk, let's say, in a figurative manner. In other words, acting out and not practicing sobriety and never put a drop of booze in your body. The Bible talks about being sober-minded. So this is a controversial issue because a lot of people within the church, within the faith communities, they think because of their faith that they don't have to work on anything. Hey, man, I'm a Christian, or, you know, whatever it is, and I'm fine. And what we find out is we see a lot of people, like in our circles, we see a lot of people who are meeting dependent, not God dependent. But I know a whole lot of people that are church dependent and not God dependent. So here's 9 signs that you're experiencing spiritual narcolepsy.
What does that mean?
That's being asleep. You're out.
Oh.
Right? Asleep in the light. So the light would be God. And are we asleep in the light and emotionally dependent on each other, on the pastor, on our sponsor, on our discipler? Or are we dependent on them and not dependent on God? And then we'll open this up for discussion. But number 1, red flag that you may be asleep in the light. We talk about Jesus, but aren't generally experiencing him. He's distant and unreal in our everyday life. He's someone we talk about more than we walk about. So that's number 1. Number 2, our relationship with Jesus, our spiritual life, is more of a weekend thing than an everyday of a week thing. Church defines our experience with Christ more than Christ defines our life experience. That would be number 2. Number 3, our spiritual life is more, our spiritual life is more form than substance. So it's more of an outside than an inside reality. So we talk a lot about in 12-step recovery, it's an inside job, right? We may do and say all the right things, avoid all the wrong things, but it's not real or alive in us. It's lip service. It's something we do, but not necessarily something we are. Number 4, we haven't experienced much authentic change in our life in a long while. Though we've been faithfully doing all that stuff, the actual change in
like
here,
on the inside.
Yeah. Nothing much has happened. Number 5, we are more concerned about the role God is playing in our plans than the role we should be playing in his plans.
That's a good one.
Number 6, we seldom really consider the eternal condition of people in our world. We are able to rub shoulders with them daily without ever addressing their spiritual condition. So we do a lot of judging, condemnation, you know. Number 7, we're living spiritually unnoticed. The people around us don't know we're Christ followers. They don't notice anything different about us. We just look like everybody else. Number 8, we tend to live for the moment more than the eternal. And this is interesting because within 12-step recovery, we have misinterpreted the one day at a time thing. Well, I just don't drink one day at a time. That's not what we're talking about. You know, if you read the big book, if you read most of your recovery literature, you're done for good and for all.
Yeah.
Now, how you live that out is one day at a time. You know, but it's not, well, maybe I'll drink tomorrow. You know, there's that.
You got to know you're done.
There's a treatment center trick that they use to say, well, you can put off your thinking for 24 hours. I am telling you, if I'm setting myself, okay, I'll drink tomorrow, I probably will.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I probably won't.
I'm probably going to.
I'll change my watch. then I'll make tomorrow come real
I think
fast.
there's a borderline on that. In the beginning, that's how you have to think. But when
Sure
you're
you
when like you're like committed, like we all are, and everybody in recovery,
Right.
you know that's like in the past now. You know you're
Yeah, you
not
bet.
going to do it.
You-
Yeah,
in the beginning, it's just enough to get
you through
the door.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get that. And number 9, we don't feel like we have a problem with being asleep in the light.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how in the Big Book it talks about how a person will have a problem, but he usually doesn't think so.
Uh-huh.
Well, we're that way in the church too. You know, I'm not asleep in the light, man. I'm here every time the doors are open. I'm doing all the footwork and all that kind of stuff, you know, but nothing's changing inside. So I'm going to play a song, and then we're going to come back and talk about this. This song has got some punch in it, and some people in the church may get a little offended by this. I know they certainly did when it was first written. But is it not very, very true? And this is a song that was written by the late, great Keith Green. It is actually performed by a gentleman by the name of Mark Martell. And I came across this version of it, and I thought I was listening to Keith Green. But listen to the words to this, and we'll kind of talk about being asleep in the light and being not emotionally sober in the church.
Do you see all the people sinking down? Don't you care? Don't you care? Are you gonna let them drown? How can you be so numb not to care if they come? You close your eyes and pretend the job's done. Oh, bless me, Lord. Bless me, Lord, you know it's all I ever hear. No one aches, no one hurts, no one even sheds one tear. But he cries, he weeps, he bleeds, and he cares for your needs. And you just lay back and keep soaking it in. Oh, can't you see it's such sin? And you turn them away as you smile and say, God bless you, be at peace, and all heaven just weeps. 'Cause Jesus came to your door, you left him out on the streets. Open up and give yourself away. You see the need, you hear the cries, so how can you delay? God's calling and you're the one, but like Jonah you run. He's told you to speak, but you keep holding it in. Oh, can't you see it's such sin? Sleeping in the dark that the church just can't fight, 'cause it's asleep in the light. How can you be so dead when you've been so well fed? 'Cause Jesus rose from the grave, and you can't even get out of bed. Oh, Jesus rose from the dead. So numb not to care if they come. You close
sad truth.
Powerful song.
Jesus rose from the dead, and you can't even get out of bed. So are we asleep in the light, Roger?
I believe that many of us are, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Keith Green fan, and I saw him in concert, and I remember being completely convicted in spirit when I heard, I had that album, No Compromise.
No Compromise, yeah.
And he's very moving.
And so Mark Martell did
I cannot believe I wasn't
outstanding
listening to Keith Green.
I know, me either. Yeah.
Amazing.
If I hadn't seen it for myself, the video for myself, I would have told you that was Keith Green. So Keith Green was very controversial because he really got in the church's face.
He did.
In fact, he kind of got a little elastic towards the end of his ministry, but with Last Days Ministries and so forth. But he really makes a really good point here. You know, we're saying that God is the most important thing in our life. The Big Book talks about God is the solution. The Bible obviously does, you know. And what are we doing? Are we just going to meetings? You know? Are we just going to church? So, and then not being submitted to the directives that God gives us. He doesn't try to ruin our fun, but he knows he made us. He knows how we operate the best. So when I was in high school, we had two kinds of drivers. We had guys in what they call raked automobiles. That means the back end of the automobile was elevated. And then we had the lowriders, who took their entire car, usually Impalas and Cadillacs, things like that, and lowered them close to the ground. And these two groups of people were constantly working on their cars, not to improve them, but to repair them. Because an automobile best operates at the center of gravity. That's how the manufacturer makes it. And when you alter that, you have problems. We were created to operate in a specific manner. And when we do our own thing, we don't do well. We hit brick walls, and then we get discouraged, and then we stop coming to church, we stop going to meetings, all that stuff, right? And we claim that the God who is God is the most important thing in our life, but then we act as if he's the least important piece of our priority list. And then we fall asleep in his light. So let's what do we do about this? Because the world's watching us, you guys, right? They are looking, and one of the things in here was like, we don't look any different than the rest of the world. Why is that? And I'm not talking about Christian rock concerts looking like secular rock concerts. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in our everyday walk. Thoughts?
That's a good moment of silence.
I know. I've never seen this come over this radio station.
We're asleep in the light. That's
yeah.
Are we taking the idea out of our 12-step programs of being powerless? Are we taking that too far?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Because what I thought of when that song was going on is the fact of the matter is I'm powerless over what other people do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I actually, and I know I'm going to be in trouble, but I felt an offense for it.
Right.
I did.
Well, when I first heard this song years ago, I had to look inward. I didn't really play that to point a finger at anybody. I got to look at myself here.
It's kind of like a reality check.
It's a reality check. I can't change you. I can't fix you. I can't fix the problems in the church. But I got to do me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, I have been very guilty, you know, of being asleep in the light, of being emotionally dependent on, and that's why I'm talking about this, is one of the problems that you're talking about, Marv. Am I so dependent on whether you're doing it right in order for me to do it right? Because if I'm waiting around for you to do it right before I follow you, I'm going to be in trouble. So emotional sobriety as a member of the church, as a member of the body of Christ, for me, means I'm going to step up to the plate and I'm going to be the very best Christian I can be, the very best recovered alcoholic that I can be, regardless of whether you're asleep in the light or not.
For me, it was like, when I heard the song, it's like, wait a minute, am I doing enough? You know? It was just, I don't know.
Well, it was an accusatory song.
Well, no, and you're right.
It is. It is an accusatory song.
Yeah. It just, like, it makes you look at yourself. Like, you think you're doing enough, but are you really doing enough? It's like, wait, hold on. You're doing this, you're going to meetings, you're sponsoring people, you're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But then it's like, wait a minute. Are you doing enough for God and not just your own sobriety? To be able to, you know what I'm saying?
And I think there's a difference between...
That's how I felt anyway.
There's a difference between beating ourselves up over not doing the next right thing and honestly taking an inventory and saying, okay, this is where I need improvement, and this is where I'm going to do better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, the song is not so much accusatory as it is take a look.
Yeah.
And see what you're doing. In the context of Alcoholics Anonymous, we clean our house, trust God, and we be of service, maximum service to others.
Right.
And this is about maximum service to others. In the context of church, you go to church so that you can leave the building and spread the good news about Christ. Both are selfless. Both are driven by God's power, even though we're powerless against results. Our job's not to result. Our job is to carry the message of hope.
Yeah.
Both in the context of recovery or in the context of church. And what Keith Green's saying certainly applies to me. You can always do more. It's not, I'm not, when I first heard the song in the early days, I was bordering on condemned, but it was really conviction. And there's a huge difference between condemnation and conviction.
Sure.
And us in the recovery
well, it's
community.
a very much in your face song, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we're very sensitive about that.
You bet.
So that song moves me.
Denver, what do you think about all this?
I've never heard the song before.
Right.
So there's a lot of stock going into the song. I was just trying to think. You gave 9 things there on that list. I wish we had got each that list so we could kind of rattle over them as we're sitting here. But nah, let me wing this here. Every day, Jesus did die for us, and I think with the clutter of the world, we do worry about what people think of us, and often that affects our decision-making for the course of the day.
True.
I really work at getting up daily and just giving thanks to God. My inventory list I go over so regular, and it makes me thankful. And in that, it makes me want to step out and give back. It's just a good... It's been an interesting journey, and there are dry seasons for me. I'm going through one right now. I get frustrated with people running red lights and almost running me over and things of such like that. But nonetheless, my compassion, I work at Teen Challenge, and I see good results going on there. It's frustrating to lose some that want to leave the program, but there are others. And that brings some emotional sobriety to me to see that. I'm not living off the results of that, but it's still rewarding to see that.
Yeah.
So that's encouraging, and with that, you grow closer with Christ. You're going, all right, that was cool. I seen that. So it builds your emotional sobriety, I guess, when you see positive things like that, and it can affect you. I don't know if that makes any sense to
No, it
anybody
does.
else, but it just people will affect you and your serenity, your sobriety, whatever you want to call it in this walk. It will affect you, but you ultimately at the end of the day have got to go. Thank you, Lord, for you loving me for who I am, because I can't do this by myself. I've tried it, and I can't do it by myself. So yeah.
So, and this isn't to put any of us on any kind of pedestal or anything like that, but the five of us in this room are on front lines ministry, if you will. I mean, it truly is. Our attendance at 12-step fellowships, working with other people, just being available at a meeting to talk to anybody whenever the occasion arises.
Wherever we go,
we do that, and yeah, can we all do better? Well, sure. I mean, none of us are perfect, but the good news is not everybody's asleep in the light. Not everybody is. I don't think any of us are. I think we nap a little bit. I think that's human, But there's a whole bunch of people that are just snoring through. And one of the reasons I talk about this is because the days are short. The time is now. There are people dying, and we don't want to offend anybody, and we don't want to get in anybody's face because we need to be gentle. And I understand that people have trauma and hurts and pains and things, but I think sometime in the name of offense, I guess, we're afraid to face an issue at all. And I got to wonder about that. And because I have been guilty of becoming emotionally dependent on people that aren't responding to the things I have to offer them in the recovery area. And then I'll get this, when I say I become emotionally dependent, I get to this place where I'm like, well, what's the use? And that's a sign of being dependent on their reaction to what I'm trying to help lay at their feet. And I'm not responsible for their response. Right, Marv? I'm not. I'm only responsible to take what I've been asked to take and leave it there.
Yeah.
But it still does affect you.
It does affect us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to crawl under my pillow and take a spiritual nap and get away from it all.
I've found that I've committed every mistake possible in the realm of churchiosity, in the realm of recovery, and today I'm secure in the truth about Christ and the truth about the fellowship, and I'm able to carry the message of hope. And when I report the truth with love,
right,
people are attracted or willing to listen. When I just beat them over the head with the truth and no love, they're not. And so the other side of the coin is if you have no truth and you only love them, there's no reality there.
What is that quote that you quote?
Yeah, it changed my world in early 2000s. Early in my recovery, I used to go to a 6 a.m. AA meeting every morning, and then on Sundays I would go to church at 7:30 at Calvary Beachside. And I'd walked in one morning, and Pastor Mike was up there, and he said, "It's been said that truth without love is brutality, and love without truth is hypocrisy."
That was it.
And I had bells and whistles literally go off in my head, and there was a friend that saw me afterwards, and I came running up to him with my Bible, and I'd written that down, and I said, "John, look at this. This is what he said." And what I found is that's been a foundational principle for me in both 12-step work, which is the same as church work. To me, they're inseparable.
So say it again. Truth
without love is brutality. If you go into a meeting and someone beats you over the head with the big book and tells you to sit down and shut up, and you have nothing to say, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth, that's truth with no love.
That's brutality.
That's brutality. And that's not the fellowship.
No.
But there are people that think it is. The other one is, it's okay, brother. Don't worry about the 12 steps or the big book. Just keep coming back and don't use in between. Really?
Yeah.
Really? Well, that's hypocrisy.
That's hypocrisy. Yeah.
So if you listen to Jesus, and Dr. Bob's, one of his favorite books in the Bible was Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13, which is a chapter on love.
Right.
Which makes it very clear that you can have the biggest church, you can have the most sponsees, you can have the biggest meetings, but if you don't do it in love, you've done nothing. So it has completely changed my psyche. And
right.
I love to report the truth with the full love of Christ or the fellowship. And it has an amazing attraction. And not because of me, but because of God.
Yeah.
And I find that church work, recovery work, it's the same.
So one of the things you say in your talks is, I report, you decide.
Yep.
But they've got to decide.
Right.
And we don't stop loving them if they decide wrong, right?
Right. Well, God's love was unconditional,
Right.
right? It wasn't conditioned upon our response. It was conditioned because his love was unconditional.
So when I listen to that song, I have to say to myself, because I can get my feathers ruffled too with that. And I have to say, okay, wait a minute here. First of all, why am I getting my feathers ruffled? Is there something I need to look at? Because it's just a song, but I mean, maybe I need to, now you know how that part, and I always take an issue with this. There's a piece in the big book that would suggest that if you see something that's going on with somebody else and it disturbs you, that means there's something wrong in you. Sometimes it means there's something right in you. It isn't always that there's something wrong in you, but you have to figure that out. And only you can do that. Only I can do that.
You can only do that by prayer because what that's called is discernment.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the Spirit of God in you nudging you to pray for that situation. It isn't because there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a tendency to want to fix things. So it
Right.
might be somebody else or myself, as opposed to when we make an observation and we're discerning and we take it in prayer, that becomes an opportunity for God to teach us something, a new lesson. I try to look for the lesson in everything today. Not just the experience or not just the situation, but I stopped being a victim some time ago, and so I never yell out at God, "Why me, God?" I say, "Lord, I don't like this, but what are you trying to teach me? I want to learn the lesson."
So I was standing outside of an AA meeting one day, Mr. Joe Christian that I am. Oh my gosh! One of the most embarrassing moments of my 12-step meeting experience and being a follower of Christ, and a person that I had gotten very close to, and we were close friends. We used to go on 12-step road trips together all the time, And he had an extremely opposite viewpoint politically on a particular member of the government than I did. And we had never gotten into an argument about it. It just wasn't part of our friendship. But I had one of those mornings where I was sick and tired of the people that were doing what I thought was basically wrong. And I walked into a situation. So remember, I'm already primed for an offense. That's not this guy's fault. I'm already ready, man. I'm ready for a fight. And he comes walking out, and he's just praising this guy. And here I am, Mr. Spiritual, right? And I said, F you! Just as loud as I could. And Kurt, tall cowboy hat Kurt. And he's a believer, and he's sitting there, and he lights up a cigarette. He goes, "Oh, somebody's spiritual today."
Ouch.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I thought, oh, that was real helpful. I just felt what I said wasn't that so helpful? I just caused my buddy to just agree with me by doing that, didn't I?
I've been there.
Oh, man.
I've been in front of meetings after the meeting's over.
Yeah.
With veins of popping, screaming at somebody in the face, screaming at them because they disagreed with me.
Right.
And I think back on those things. I never want to forget them. The most humiliating, self-righteous, positions.
Right.
I don't ever want to be that again.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, there was a prime example of me being emotionally dependent on him agreeing with me for me to be okay in that meeting. You're my friend. You need to agree with me for me to be okay today. And I don't know anybody in my life, including my wife, that believes everything exactly like I do. Do you? Do you guys?
I don't.
I don't think it's possible at all.
So why are we so emotionally dependent on other people doing that?
Ask James. I don't know. He's like, Tony, no. That's not how it works.
Right. So let me ask you, Marv. I'll start with Marv and just go around the room real quick here.
The silent cowboy.
So, in your experience in attending church meetings, let's just call them that, right? Going to church. Do you think most people are there for the right reasons? For the most part.
Jeez.
Ooh, that's a very... Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, let me answer that this way.
Yeah.
Because I do have some problems with churches. Okay?
Right.
I'll admit it up front.
My hand goes up too. Yeah.
But for the most part, which is what was a question.
Right. For the most part.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
What do you think, Roger? For the most part.
I think for the most part, they believe they're there for the right reason. It's been my experience that it's a destination on Sunday and not necessarily a principle that operates during the rest of the week.
Right.
I think that can be said sometimes about some of our 12-step fellowships as well.
You bet.
So for me, when church and meetings became an opportunity to fellowship,
mm-hmm.
and the business of recovery took place outside, I found that I became more complete within myself and was much more comfortable wherever I went, and I wasn't dependent upon other people to be okay. But that took a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to, I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I was in that.
Tony understands.
And so I didn't, there was no relationship then.
Yeah.
I was very involved with Calvary Chapel in early days and married there. And that's a very large church community. And I had a place there. But it wasn't until I got through all the brokenness and addiction, until I got sent 3 times by the courts to AA. And when I finally met the God that I always believed in the context of Alcoholics Anonymous, did my life begin to really change.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting journey. And so with that process, it's all process. In the church community, you call it sanctification. And in the fellowship, we call it, recovery and walking the talk and talking the walk. And so the promises operate all the time. I think a lot of people get stuck on steps and they don't ever see the promises. Or they
don't do the steps and they wonder why the promises don't come true.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So when it starts to all merge together, I find church and 12 steps now, for me, to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So I look at life completely different than I did my whole life. So it's a different world. I'm still a challenge to all of the things we talked about, but I don't look for my emotional sobriety because of how you treat me, even though I'm sensitive about that.
Sure.
Like, I'm sensitive to people not being kind or nice to me.
Well, we would hardly be human if we weren't.
Right. But it doesn't control me. It's like people always ask me at church, "How are you, Roger?" And my response is, "I'm blessed." And people ask me now, "How are you, Roger?" They go, "I know you're blessed." Because, and I tell them, well, see, that's a fact regardless of how I feel. The fact of the matter is I'm blessed. See, that's the simple truth, and it has nothing to do with how I feel. I could feel horrible. I could be sick as a dog. So I'm still blessed.
True.
And so
true enough.
Separating the truth and the reality of who I am with my identity in Christ solves emotional dependency on others. So I don't depend on, somebody else, because God's my light, even though I fall short all the time.
Sure.
But it's certainly, when you have that sort of directive and those principles, it certainly changes your world. I mean, I am blessed, no matter how I feel. So that's not the way it used to be. And none of us would.
Right.
Blessed was a word I never used in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
I was never blessed. I was okay. I was good. I was whatever. I was happy. Happiness is a choice. I get to make choices. It's not a feeling. Joy comes as a feeling in response to God's life with Him.
Mm-hmm.
But happiness is a choice. I can wake up in the morning and I can choose to be pissed off, or I can choose to be happy. I have a choice. And it's regardless of my circumstances.
Regardless.
Regardless.
Yeah. Tony.
How do you follow that up?
Well, okay. So
no,
you came out of a very legalistic kind of religious experience.
Yeah,
in the old days.
I like what he said about feeling.
Right.
Because I have some serious health issues going on right now, but he said it perfectly.
You're blessed regardless.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't realize it. And there's serious health issues.
Yeah.
That I've been talked about.
Sure.
And thank you, Roger. Oh my God, I'm crying in front of Roger McDiarmid.
Emotional sobriety.
No, but it was meant for me to be on this show. Normally I'm working on Wednesdays.
Right.
So thank you.
Right. So do you think, as somebody who's kind of new to the new church setting, that you
the new church setting, yeah.
Yeah. Do you
and
think,
I agree
you think people there for the most part?
I'm a recovering Catholic too, and I understand that.
Right. So do you feel for the most part the people, because you go to neighborhood church with me, do you feel for the most part people are there for the right reasons?
I'm still in the learning process. It's only been a year since I've been back to church. Sorry. But I'm learning what the right and wrong reasons are. It's not just you go Sunday, just be like, oh, I'm a follower of God.
Right.
You learn more about yourself each time, like I do, and you learn more about how to treat others, and what Pastor Kelly says about. He said it perfectly last Sunday, and I can't remember what he said, but treating others like you want undone to you and stuff like that.
Sure.
So. I think it's all like a learning and growing process.
You bet.
The more you go, the more you learn, and the more you learn about yourself and others. So, I I don't know if any of that made sense, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry on air again like I always do, but...
That's okay. Denver, what do you think?
Are people in the assembly for the right reason?
You think for the most part they
I
are?
believe they come... Yes, they are seeking to be there for the right reason.
Which could be a right reason, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're there for a reason. So they come with a good reason.
Yeah.
And over time, depending on the growth and the works and everything else that goes on within them, I can't say.
Sure.
Where it ends up.
Sure.
But I honestly believe that people come with the intention that they're being drawn for a reason.
Okay, so that was the hook question. Now here's my response to it. The real question is, am I there for the right reason?
Exactly.
Right? And emotional sobriety would demand that regardless of whether I think they're there for the right reason or all the wrong reasons, that I'm there for the right reason.
Mm-hmm.
There you are. We're taking inventory when we're sitting in the pews.
Right.
You bet.
of how somebody else's
and
walk
don't you
is
know
going.
me do it.
Oh, heck yeah.
There's this one lady, I look at her, and my wife says, then don't look at her.
I know which one you're talking
about. And, she does this thing, and I'm like, I'm writing her off. Oh, that she's just drawing attention to herself. She's this, she's that. And I'm thinking, and I don't even know her. Who am I?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you know what that is? That's emotional dependency. Mm-hmm. I'm dependent on her behaving and worshiping God the way I would for me to have a good worship experience. Now, that is emotionally drunk.
Expectations
totally
leads to resentments.
That's an expectation. And I have no business doing that. So it's like, if you're having problems with social media, unplug. If you're watching somebody else's behavior and you're getting resentful over that, stop watching their behavior. And so emotional sobriety in the church would be, I'm taking care of me. I'm going there and I'm checking my checklist of why I'm there. And it's interesting, isn't it? Once we start doing that, we start seeing people through different eyes. You know, because I will bet you that this lady would be highly hurt if she thought that someone was thinking that. Because she's what I know of her, she's a very sweet woman. Why do we do that? And I think the enemy of our soul has something to do with that. Let's get you distracted. And it's the same way at meetings. I've talked about the guy whose car was parked in front of the local meeting. And I pull into the parking lot. And I'm not going to that meeting today. And then I find out weeks later his car had broken down. He hasn't been there either.
Look, that's our nature.
We're a mess.
So I'm at my home group last Friday night, and normally there's a timer so that people share. You have 3 minutes, and then you have 30 seconds to wrap up.
Right?
And nobody was a timer at this meeting, and people were like going on, which I thought was too long because don't you know that Roger is. He's the keeper of all meeting rules and whatever. And so, and I had a newbie there that had never been to that meeting, and he was newly in recovery. And we went out to dinner afterwards, and he sent me a text, and he said, "That was unreal." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" I mean, my thoughts were it was a sickening minute, it was a horrible meeting, and what's a newbie going to think? And his perception was it was unbelievable.
It was good.
So I have to check myself all the time,
Right.
and it's like closed mouth when mind is going off like that. You
Yeah.
know, if I don't have, it's like my mom when she used to say to me, "If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything." And that little principle sticks by me today. I try not to say
Yeah,
anything.
my parents used to tell me that too.
Oh, my Italian mouth gets me in trouble every time.
Called closed mouth.
Yep.
Yeah. Rather than stick foot in mouth, closed mouth. Yeah.
Put pasta in it.
But the other thing I think that, like you were talking about, Monty, is the awareness that we have of us being self-righteous or whatever.
Inventory takers.
It's that awareness is where the lesson and the growth come from. And so
it does. If
I
you
think
can
it's
take
very-
it as a teaching experience,
Yes.
then you will.
Yes.
You will do the interchange. That will happen, and you'll be awake in the light.
I believe so.
You know, and I think if you nod off once in a while, figuratively speaking, sometimes we need a little, hey, wake up. And I think that's where the Spirit of God comes in and says, why are you looking over there? Look over here.
Yeah, my sponsor's good at that one.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because one of the things that I compare, they really run parallel with each other a lot, of things that I personally did not like about quote unquote organized religion. I hate that term and the way people use it, but for lack of a better term, that's one of those statements a lot of people make that don't like church. And I'm talking about the building and the time spent in it. So, and the parallels with a 12-step meeting. So I would hear somebody say, well, I don't go to church because I don't like organized religion. And I say, well, what is it about going to church that you don't like? And this is what I would hear. And it was always pretty much the same. Well, I don't like that a guy stands up there and tells you and swears by one book. And that's the way, and there's no other way. Okay, what else don't you like? I don't like that they ask for money. Okay, what else? Well, I don't like that the people there, they act one way at church and they act another way outside of church. They're hypocrites. Okay, what else? And there'd be a list of things. And I am telling you, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, this sounds like an AA meeting. There's a guy behind a podium at the speaker meeting, he's a big book thumper, and I'm not against big book thumper. I'm a big book thumper. I love thumping.
Passing the basket.
I'm like remember Wano, Marv? He would say, well, how would you rather be thumped? Right? So I'm a big book thumper. But so you got a guy up there saying, this is the way, right here. These 12 steps. If you don't do these steps, you're not going to recover. Big book thumper all the way. Then he got the old guy over in the corner says, if you can't put $1 in the basket, you shouldn't be here. You got that guy asking for money. Right? You got a whole ton of people acting one way in a meeting and another way outside of the meeting. I mean, it sounds like church to me.
Parallel.
So your argument is irrelevant. You like church. You're here every day, 3 times a day. All right? The only thing we don't do, I suppose, is sit around and sing songs. Well, no, they do. There's
they do.
The music meetings down in L.A. where recording artists come and they play music, and we light candles. A lot of churches light candles. We have candlelight meetings.
Catholic.
I mean, we
do
serve
that
bad coffee. So does church. Never had a really good cup of coffee in
church's
church.
green tea, though.
Huh?
Our church's green tea is really good.
Oh, you like our green tea? Okay. So you know what that is? That's all this stuff that's all about me, and it's and what it does is it causes us to become emotionally dependent and not emotionally sober.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm emotionally dependent, I fall asleep.
I was told something in early sobriety. When you go to the meetings, listen for similarities and not differences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that basic foundational idea, no matter how bad I think the meeting is, if I'm listening for similarities, I then find myself relating. And if I don't relate to someone else, that's okay. But that doesn't make the meeting bad. So, my sponsor had me spend a lot of time in the doctor's opinion when I first got sober. And it's like you need a whole complete psychic change, and our perception of reality is the definition of an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was my perception of everything had to change, even when I stopped drinking. I mean, my thinking was still terrible. And so I think if you go to church and you listen for similarities, or you go to a meeting, listen for similarities, you'll start relating. And when you start relating, you're going to find people that are like-minded. And when you find people are like-minded, you'll want to migrate to them. And when you migrate to them, suddenly you have fellowship. And then, oh my gosh, I'm not thinking about me.
Yeah.
And but it takes time, and it takes humility, which I never had,
Yeah. Yeah. But now you can't honestly tell me that you've never been to a bad meeting, though. I've been to a bad meeting.
Here's how I say it now.
Yeah.
This is how I do it now.
This is how we roll.
I used to say it was a horrible meeting.
Right.
What I just say now is some are better than others. Because honestly, I've gone to bad meetings.
Right.
However, when I close my eyes and tune out from the people and I try to listen to a message, somewhere in the bad meeting,
you're going to have a good experience.
There's a message.
Yeah.
And the message may be, don't do what I've been doing. But there's a lesson in every meeting and a lesson in every message. And it depends on how we listen and how we perceive. Some meetings are awesome. Some meetings suck.
In some meetings, it's your perception, because the guy next to you loved it, like you were saying, right?
My point just happened last Friday night. So, and there's a lesson there. And, I got some sobriety, and I was thinking that meeting was terrible, and the new guy thought it was awesome.
He sounds like my sponsor.
And now you see that in your growth and your walk. Those things come to light.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start to realize, all right, that was cool.
Marv, ever been in a meeting and you were like, why am I here?
He's been smiling over there.
The silent cowboy.
Yesterday.
Oh, let's hear about that.
You want to share it?
No.
That's growth right there.
It was one of those type of things. The people that were there were not who I thought was going to be there.
Oh, Lord.
Expectation number one.
There was some weird sidebar stuff going on.
Right.
And
He's hesitating. He's hesitating.
My spirit was in rebellion.
Right.
So, but I managed to sit there and keep my mouth shut and go through it. So,
if nothing else, taught you some patience, and right. I mean, one of the things,
patience, love, and understanding.
We all have.
No, it's kind of like what Roger said in the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe it was you. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
you know, who the hell do I think I am?
Yeah, who am I? What,
you know,
right?
So that's something I practiced for a long time, is being able to separate myself and not be emotionally involved and take on other people's stuff and all this stuff. To be able to sit there, observe, and realize I'm powerless, and God is going to work in their lives like He's working in my life.
Yeah.
And keep my mouth shut.
It's so funny because this is how my brain works. It's a walking contradiction. So I go to a meeting or I'll go to church and something will happen and that is just inappropriate, and I'll think, and it may be totally inappropriate, and I'll go, every time I come here, this kind of thing happens. I am so sick of it. And so then I don't go, and something inappropriate happens, and I hear about it. I go, how come I miss all the fun? I'm not happy either way. You know, and that's kind of my brain, you know. So my brain can be emotionally intoxicated. Believe me.
Oh, mine is
I
too.
believe you.
Oh, no.
You know, the principle of acceptance, which was so foreign to me for so long.
Right.
But, you know, after you read that for a while, I mean, I have a tendency of talking to people about, have you read 417 lately in the big book, you know? And that idea of acceptance, people, places, and things.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a choice that we make. And when you distill it down and take out all the emotions and everything, it's like, yeah, I'm making bad choices sometimes. I'm not willing to be acceptable of people, places, and things because I'm an alcoholic and I'm self-centered and all that, you know.
We're a mess.
Yeah, it's like I get tired of being that, so I call myself out. When you can have a conversation with yourself,
right,
and it's a healthy one like that, that's a good thing. You know, that still small voice that says, Roger, really? And I just look up and smile because God loves me, and I'm just like, I know, you know.
Well, if you look in the mirror and you say, what's wrong with you? And you stand there and wait for an answer.
But I know what's wrong with me.
You might want to ask again,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you?
The man in the mirror.
The man in the mirror. All right, this has been fun. Thanks, you guys.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Roger
Thank
Dodger.
you.
Yes,
My
thanks,
pleasure.
Roger. He's not perfect.
Great.
I know. Isn't
I
it
know.
great?
If you only knew me.
So don't take offense to the Keith Green song.
No.
Just check yourself. That's all.
I would invite anybody who's never heard Keith Green to
Right.
get No Compromise and listen to the music.
No Compromise is an
I
amazing
saw him
album.
in concert more than once, and he had me in tears. But it was, when you think it, and it feels like condemnation, it was really conviction.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to work through that. But what a composer, what a musician, what a piano player.
Yeah. He died how many years ago?
70-something.
Plane crash, right? Was it plane crash? Yeah. Yeah.
Like La Bamba. Good Lord.
Yeah?
He went up in a private plane. He had too much weight in it. And he and
Ooh,
one of
Jesus.
his kids, he did something he shouldn't have done, and it cost him his life.
Yeah. Happens to a lot of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, zippity doodah, zippity a. Thank you, Denver, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
A blessing.
Thank you, Marv.
You bet.
Thank you, Christy.
And Nala.
And Nala, the studio cat. Until our. Oh, well, tell them how they can listen to the show,
Oh, okay.
Tony. Tony in Denver.
You can listen and, excuse me, download any of our shows by going to take12radio.com and clicking on the Follow Me on Podomatic. Once you're there, you can download our app on Android or iOS. You can comment on the shows, love us or hate us. We'd love to hear from you either way.
And you can also listen to the shows on our YouTube channel. Simply go to take12radio.com and click on the YouTube icon. And if you'd like to send us your email, our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. That's take12radio@comcast.net.
And until next time, this is the Monty Man and the gang, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.